Have you ever passed a classic car driving down the road and wondered how long it took to restore it to that condition? What are some facts about it specifically? Some of you have known from the previous speech that there are collector cars in my family. About 10 family members have collector cars that I can think of. There are cars of different makes and models and do not see much driving time, if any, at all. I am going to inform you about the different generations of Mustangs because that is my personal favorite, and hopefully inform you about some of the questions that you may have about the Mustang. Some of you have been to car shows with me and asked, how can I tell the difference about the different Mustangs? By the end of this speech, you should be able to differentiate some simple differences about the Mustang generations. As I have personally restored 2 first-generation Mustangs, I have learned a lot about different styles of Mustangs that Ford has created. Additionally, I started going to car shows at the age of 16 with my family. And by simply going to the car shows, I have learned about all sorts of additions to the Mustang from both my parents and others attending. In this speech, I'm going to inform you about the history of the Ford Mustang and the 5 different generations and how I've continued to learn about them throughout the years. Now I will continue to inform you about the first and second generation Mustang. The first generation Ford Mustang is the most sought after today. It is 1964 and a half to 1973. The second generation of the Mustang is not the most produced because people did not care for it because of the body style. That was in 1974 to 1978. So in 1964, Ford created a car called the Mustang. It was in the mid-year. The Mustang was made to be an economical car that was affordable to anybody. About $2,000 to $2,500 in those days. The Mustang came out in the mid-year of 1964, which is why it was called the 1964 and a half Mustang. Sales exceeded, according to Motor Trend, sales exceeded expectation in those couple of years with the introduction of the convertible and the fastback type of Mustang. The Mustang became popular in movies since it was fast and popular car at that time. The 2 different classifications were created to sell to the upper class clientele. The 1968 was used in the movie Bullitt with Steve McQueen. Then came the Boss cars, the 302 and the 429, and the Cobra Jet, according to Car and Driver. In 1971, Ford changed the style to a longer and more heavier car, which helped with those bigger engines that they came out with. The second generation was not Ford's best. People did not care for the body style because it was unattractive. In 1974, they came out with the Mustang II. This was the one that they all wanted to forget about because the body style was not a typical Mustang style. There were no parts sold for this car from 1974 to 78, and even if you look in magazines today, there still are no parts made for those cars. Now that we've learned about the first and second generations, let's move on to the more common third and fourth generations. The third generation was 1979 to 1993, and the fourth generation was 1994 to 2004. These are the Mustangs that are most commonly owned, and more people have the Mustangs between these years. The third generation Mustang was called the Fox Body because it had more of a square style. The car had 2 engines, a turbo 4-cylinder, which was an SVO, and the V8, which was the GT model. There was also an option to have a Fox Body with a T-top where the panels on the top removed almost made it a convertible. There was, the fourth generation was much like this third generation, but a sleeker design. The colors that were available on this car, many people did not like. They were school bus yellow, rainbow orange, and gold. Ford came up with a good engine, the dual overhead cam 4.6 liter, which is still used in cars today. In 2001, they tried to recreate the Bullitt because they wanted to recreate such a popular car again. Now that you have learned about these generations, I will tell you about the fifth and the current generation. In 2005, Ford tried to go back to the original classic feel with a modern twist. At this time, they moved the plant from Flat Rock, Michigan to Dearborn temporarily so they can modernize the Dearborn plant. They had put interior lighting under the dashes so they could change the inside of the car, the lights and stuff for the kids to make them sell more and be more attractive to people. They made a glass roof to replace the T-tops that were formerly from the other generation. There were 3 engine types for these cars, for the 5th generation cars. The V6 had 210 horsepower, the V8 had 300 horsepower, and they made a 5.8 liter supercharged for the GT500 model that was 500 horsepower. Now that we've learned about the 5th generation of the Ford Mustangs, I will review some of the monumental traits of the Mustang. In learning about the 5 generations of the Mustang, you can see that there are different options to choose from. You can go back to the late 60s and 70s and get all with the collector cars, or you can buy all the new Mustangs with all the new options, and you can spend up to $50,000 to $100,000. Here I have a picture of a timeline of the Mustangs. The first 3, you have the 1st generation. Then this is the 2nd generation, the smaller one. You have the Fox body style. You have the 4th generation, which looks a lot like the 5th generation. I'll pass that around for you. And I hope you enjoyed the information and will inform some of the others about Mustangs you learn about today.